Well, hello, everyone. It is so great to see you again. For those of you who don't yet know me, my name is Alex Tullio, and I'm the CEO of Financial Executive Women. Now, as you know by now, we've been coming to you live for well over a year, and something like, 100 and something episodes. I need to check on that. And I come to you 3 days a week, bringing you some really interesting conversations with fantastic leaders and experts from all over the globe. Now, as we always do say now, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, because you are all streaming in from different parts of the world, which is so, so cool. And our guest today, who is, of course, fabulous, would you expect anything else, is actually streaming to us from the US. So it's her evening as well. So without further ado, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce today's guest. And then I love to jump right in. So let's do it. So today I'm going to be speaking to Gail Carter, who's a global impact strategist. Now, she's a successful leader and results-driven problem solver who focuses her impact on clean energy, leadership, and personal development. Gail leverages her extensive career in corporate America and global nonprofits to create sustainable strategies that help clients to own their power in various areas of their lives. She's an international speaker, a best-selling author, a coach, and a global philanthropist, originally from Barbados. Gail is the founder of Lightshift 360 and Illuminaire Solar, and the creator of the Renewal 360 Encounter and the Serve Blueprint. Before becoming an entrepreneur, Gail worked as a professional engineer and senior manager on billion-dollar projects at Fortune 300 companies in the energy and construction industries. Now, Gail's been recognised for her leadership, volunteerism, and accomplishments by receiving the Junior League's Women to Watch Award, the People's Choice Award, and had been featured in Courageous Woman magazine and has been contributing writer for We Magazine for Women. She's authored 7 published books and has been a global philanthropist in 4 countries. Gail, we need to get into some of this. There is a lot to talk about here. How are you?
Hello, Alex, and hello to everyone listening today. I'm super excited to be here, and I pray that what we share and talk about today will be a blessing to many and have an impact on people's lives.
Well, what a great hope for the show. Yes. So Gail, and you and I have talked a few times behind the scenes. So that I love to jump in and get your story in your own words, because I think, you and I have already shared, our shared passion for the importance of storytelling and role models and a heap of other things. So give us a bit of the Gail Carter story from, Did you yearn to be an engineer when you were a little girl? Like, how did you end up there, and then from there to where you are now?
Oh, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. So I grew up in the Caribbean island of Barbados. I am the eldest of 3. So I have a younger sister and a brother. And growing up there, the island is very, very small. It's only 166 square miles. So like 250,000 people, right? But it was fun. And what I did with my dad on Sundays, we took family trips around the island. And believe it or not, we would tour different houses and look at the architecture. So early on, that sparked my interest in architecture. And I applied to architecture school in the United States. I knew from an early age I wanted to live in the United States. We grew up traveling around the world a lot, and I just knew that I wanted to make a successful career here. However, as I learned in life, not everything goes according to what we plan. So I did not get into any architectural schools because a lot of them wanted me to have a portfolio already. In the Caribbean, in Barbados, we follow the British educational system. So at that time, I didn't have that, but I was very strong in math and engineering and science, So I decided to pursue an education here in the United States to pursue a civil engineering degree. That way I can still work on structures, but I will do it more on, instead of the fancy architectural design, more on the structural engineering side. Of course, my career I did not get a job in structural engineering. I took a career in airport design and also land development for Walt Disney. I did love engineering though. I loved engineering. I became a licensed engineer and I worked in the engineering space for 7 years of my life. After 7 years, I realized that I wanted more in life. I started to see the connections with people. I started to see that I really enjoyed project management. I enjoyed leading. I enjoyed delegating and dealing with teams, you know? So I realized, okay, Gail, now it's time to make a break. Looking back on my life, I realized that my breaks and pivotal moments happen every 7 years. So that was the first time that it happened. I pursued my master's degree in business, an MBA, with the intent of thinking more strategically, working on a lot of projects, big picture, and making a bigger impact. That led me to move from Florida to New Jersey. And I'll share with your audience, one of the things that I've learned in life too is just go, take chances. You know, when opportunities present themselves, just go with it if possible. And for me, I live my life that way all the time. So I got an opportunity to move to Princeton, New Jersey, and I worked in the energy industry as a manager of operations planning. And I worked in project controls as well on big projects. $1.6 billion was the largest project I worked on, a big solar farm in the Mojave Desert in California. Working at that job allowed me to do some philanthropy. You know, I traveled to Haiti and installed solar, and I got a chance, that's after the earthquake. I also got a chance to install solar in Staten Island, New York for homes that were impacted by the Hurricane Sandy victims. One thing I did learn about my upward trajectory through corporate America, a lot of times, you know, my opportunities came by just sharing with people what my gifts are and not being afraid to do that. And within my first 6 weeks of working there, I ended up meeting the COO of this company over beer, of all things. And, you know, I relayed my background, shared what I can do, which led me to, you know, opportunities to meet some other people within the company and worked on other projects. So I was doing my work as well as some other work at the same time, but it allowed me to get exposure. And because of that, other opportunities opened up, which I applied, you know, for different roles and got them. So I want to say to people, you know, just be open, be aware, and be present to opportunities. They're always around you if you choose to see them. And also just communicate the value that you bring and the value that you have. So
Gail, there is so much gold there already. And I'm smiling because, you know, you and I, so for everyone watching and listening, it's a funny process, right? Because often, as I've said to Gail, it depends kind of on the day, what questions come out and how it feels, right? Which I think that's where we get these best, you know, conversations because we're connecting in real time. So yes. Gail, you know how you and I have been talking a lot about, you know, sharing what's happening and being present and all sorts of things we've talked about, how the universe kind of gives you the next lesson and you go, yes. Okay, what have I still got? Like all of these things, sharing vulnerability, journey. And I think you and I are both so passionate about sharing these real stories, right? So in already what you've recounted, I've got like about 10 questions in my head. Because I think this is, I want to unpick your journey, but also I want to talk about things like, you know, right back at the start of when you were sharing. I mean, how beautiful that you and your dad went and looked at architecture and you had in your mind that, you know, this is with the path. And you've already said one of my absolute favorite things is, you know, the path always kind of doesn't go as planned, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd love to talk to you a bit about, you know, because I know you do a lot of work as well now with loads of leaders and women. So let's talk about that. I want to talk about how do you know, kind of reconcile yourself when you've got something that's in your mind that you want to happen some way and it doesn't happen that way. And you've got to be present to the opportunities, as you're saying, like be present to the opportunities, take those kind of what might feel like a risky move that wasn't planned. Because I feel like once we kind of get to that place, you literally can do anything, right? But it's a journey. So talk to us a bit more about how do you sort of navigate that and kind of go, okay, something's presented, wasn't the plan, but I'm going to grab it anyway.
Yeah.
Talk to us about
Yeah, sure. And I learned, and I was sharing with a friend just this week alone too, about the ability to, especially for analytical people. I'm highly analytical. I'm also introverted, and most people don't see that. But what I learned is sometimes that we can't only make decisions with our head, right? So I've learned to be in touch with my intuitive side, and that allows me to be a little bit more present. Being present, and I'm starting to be more sensitive to things that people say, synchronicities that are happening, and I'm very conscious of things that are around me. So that allows me to sense and feel, and I know it sounds kind of weird, but I'm highly intuitive. What's the right next step for me? And all that is encompassed underneath the umbrella of faith and prayer. So I am Christian too. So that also helps me in my journey. So I feel that a lot of my decisions have been made first from my head. It sounds logical, it sounds right, but then I'll turn to prayer. I would either go to church or I would pray and I would ask God for the right direction for me. And usually I would feel it. And I can give you examples of this, which, because by doing that and taking that leap of faith, a lot of miracles have happened in my life because of that. So.
Do I love that we're talking about this already, because I feel, so I also think I've always actually been very intuitive myself. So, the gut feel. And it's interesting because you and I also have shared, I guess, a background to our careers of corporate, right?
Yes.
And obviously everyone's journey is different, and there's loads of great things that come. Like, I think about what my corporate roles, the opportunities they afforded me, what they taught me. No regrets, right? But it's different to where I am now, and it's different to where you are now as well. But in that journey, somewhere along the way, it's almost like I suppressed that intuition and that trust in the gut feel. And I think I did that because it was kind of this weird kind of fluffy, your gut feel. Like, I was in, financial services, I was in banking. So, and I love that, because this is my learning, right? It's both. So I have also a very strong logical brain, but also that did not do me a lot of favors, right? In some circumstances, because I remember going, but I need to work out where I'm going and what the outcome's going to be. And these are the steps I'm going to take. And this is how it's going to happen. And why hasn't it happened yet? And it was meant to be this month. And that like literally nearly did my head in. So I reckon I had to relearn over the last few years to really listen to whatever you call it, your intuition, your gut feel, and to really tune back into that. And I think everyone has that to varying degrees, but trusting that, I think you've got to trust it, don't you? Like, you've got to, as you're saying, the thinking brain, but also then you're kind of trusting your gut. And I love that you talk about that's for you, that's your faith, and it's going to church and it's prayer, because spirituality and whatever you want to call it, whatever you identify with, comes in so many different forms. So it doesn't have to be that. It's just kind of, where's that place where you can get in touch with that feeling. So I want to, when you're talking about this, I mean, give us some examples of, because you were then talking about, leap of faith, and this is how you live your life, and you grab an opportunity and you go for it. I'd love to, get some examples of your journey. So from kind of, very heavy analytical engineering, corporate, I'm sure male-dominated environment. Let's talk about that. Where has your intuition and your gut started to play parts from moving away from that, and then this big transition that you've had to philanthropy and entrepreneurialism and running your own business? And can we talk about writing 7 books?
I know. Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, again, on my 7-year journey. So in 2014,
So I know. Are we in the 7th year now?
We are.
Okay, so
I'm excited to see what's going to happen this year. I never know.
Well,
but it's always something like really pivotal. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So in 2014, I quit my corporate job. And I'll tell you how I got to that point. So I was a rising star in corporate, excelled, had a lot of visibility recognition. And like a lot of people probably have happened to them, we had a company merger. So during that merger, I did have choice. So this is here where, you know, some vices in our or bringing or way of being can zap us, right? So here's what happened to me. I saw a lot of my friends taking severance packages, and I really wanted one too, you know. And I was like, you know what? I can travel the world, because that was already in me, having gone to Haiti and also volunteered in Peru. And I was like, you know what? I can take this money and really do what I really want to do in life. That was my intuition. That was my feeling. That was resonating with me. And then I let the following happen. I grabbed at the promotion. I got promoted in a merger. I grabbed at the money that was there available. And I grabbed my prestige, my desire for this ego and prestige won out, right? So for me, in that crossroads in life, because we always come to a point where we have to make a big decision. And for me, having chose that path, I lived the worst 1.5 years of my life. So what happened? I picked the wrong thing, but it was a learning opportunity for me. I started to pray a lot about, okay, God, so what am I supposed to learn out of this? You know, please give me signs of when I need to leave this situation, because it was very uncomfortable for me. And it was kind of demoralizing, very tormenting psychological kind of way. But I was in this deep depression, frustration, stress, and this downward spiral. And I was very silent about it because I didn't want people to know. And I also felt like I'm tough, I'm strong, I can get through this. And I tried everything in my power to do that, and I was not succeeding. And then I realized, wait a minute, the only person that can take control of this is me. So I kind of just had to like own my power and take back my power and realize, in reality, this is not what I wanted to do anyway. Why am I trying to fight the tides and not go with the flow with what I really wanted to do? So I decided, after prayer and getting my signs, I left, and I took that leap of faith, and I left a nice cushiony 6-figure salary. And within 1 month, I moved to Nicaragua. So a lot of people will tell me, you did what? What? Are you out of your mind? You know? So I moved from living in Princeton, New Jersey, to Central America, in the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, next to Haiti. And here's why. So I have a servant heart, and I wanted to make an impact. And I did a lot of research. So in this 5-step process that I created, the 5-step serve blueprint, in my first part, S, is really, I put a strategy together. What do I really want to do and why I wanted to do it, right? And then I had to do a lot of internal self-reflection, reflect on me and like what I'm trying to bring in the world. So when I moved to Nicaragua and lived there for 3 months, I ended up serving by teaching at a university and also helping in a rural community with no running water, no electricity, no cars. I took my showers outside with a bucket of water, cold water from the well. I used a latrine outside, walked to work every day. But I lost 16 pounds. I ate healthy. I reconnected with God. I found my purpose. I just had a fulfilling enrichment in life, walking every day, like walking this narrow road with cows, sheep, horses, pigs, chickens, all of the community farm animals. And what it taught me was just being present, just being aware of how small our problems in life really are relative to how in our minds we create them as these magnificent things when they're really not. And I learned to be just present, right? And still. The parallels of this, ironically, are what people are going through right now with COVID. So I see a lot of parallels there where people were forced to be quiet, secluded, you know, by themselves and have a lot of internal reflection and innovate and restructure where they're going next in life, right? In addition to that, so the second step in my serve blueprint is really an empowering mindset. So in my journey, you know, the journey was kind of lonely because I traveled by myself. And then you have to really evaluate, okay, in your right mind, where are you going? How to stay positive? How to keep your mind focused on the mission? So, I had to do a lot of mental processes. A lot of it turns, you can do gratitude, affirmations, manifestations, a lot of various things, but it was maintaining a positive mindset. And it could be through prayer. For me, staying focused on that, you know, coming back to the United States after that journey, though, I'm telling you, that opened up so many doors for me in terms of opportunities where I got to do more mission trips in Guatemala 2 years after that. I got a chance to write 5,000 Smiles to Happiness was my first book. Now, who would ever thought that the engineer would become an author, right? And I was just sharing the journey and sharing the experiences because people wanted to know. I feel that deep down, people, and I've been doing this market research recently, and people deep down, they're good at their job, have a lot of accolades and everything like I did. But deep down, they have a desire to do something more meaningful in life, more purposeful, and make a bigger impact. And sometimes we just suppress that. So for me, I was so glad I had the opportunity. So after writing 5,000 Smiles to Happiness, 5 Steps to Renew Your Mind, Revive Your Joy, and Unleash Your Leadership Potential, it was really just sharing my experiences in Peru, Haiti, Guatemala, and Nicaragua, and how serving really got me to another level of life and also allowed me to pivot again.
So I want you to pause there because I want to ask you again loads of questions, because I think this is so fascinating, because and you're right, we connect with each other's stories depending on what's going on with us and where we are in the moment in time and all these sort of things, right? But when you go back to, that point where the merger, because a lot of our community, you've described it as the crossroads. And, as you quite rightly say, last year, we're still in this pandemic this year. It's not just disappearing. I think a lot of people have either chosen, and some have been forced, to have this reflection moment and really reflect on, is this what I want from life? And, I really connect with your story on a lot of levels, actually, because especially when you're talking about, you got the promotion and rising star, highly thought of, commanded a great salary, the title. And I remember that was, and, our community probably heard me talk about this. For me, this is all about our self-identity, right? Because I did not realize, like seriously, I did not realize until I left that world, and I was at the top of my field as well, just how much of my identity was tied up in that affirmation of what we earn and what we're called. And if you ask me when I was in that life, I'm like, I don't care about a title, and I genuinely didn't. But when I left, and that's all stripped away, and that's how you've got your. It's like this affirmation of your worth, because look what I can do because I'm paid this much money, and this is how people value me, and this is the jobs that I get, and I've been promoted again. Like, that's not bad, but I think when you step away from that, that's when you truly go, wow, who am I really? Like we've gone deep today, guys, really quick. But I think this is so important, because a lot of our people listening, whether they're looking at the next horizon, or just changing jobs, or they love their job, but it's the alignment in their life or the time they have to carve out, all the things that you're talking about when you're in Nicaragua, you've gone right back to the basics.
Yeah.
It's hard to kind of break out of the noise, right, and get to that. So you've made this massive move. You've really got back in touch with so many things. You're reflecting on, as you say, it's this self-reflection, which can be like really uncomfortable, right? So this self-reflection time, you've come back to the States. So then you've got all these opportunities. I also want to ask you though, was it a culture shock? Right. Well, and I don't just mean from just but going from literally that village type atmosphere with literally everything stripped away, walking, to work, all that, and then coming back to the United States with everything that Western, privileged Western society kind of throws back at you. How did that feel? Like, oh my God, this is overwhelming? Or was it like, oh God, I've really missed being able to go and get a takeout coffee? Or like, what was that like?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I cried when I landed. When the airport plane landed in New Jersey. I actually literally cried because I actually missed it. So it's so ironic. The peace and the internal peace that you get in the quiet.
Mm.
And I really wasn't missing the luxuries, to be quite honest, because what I was seeing there was people sharing things that, it's hard for them to, they don't have much, but people would give the last of what they have for somebody else, right? And so I kept comparing that to my corporate lifestyle when that wasn't happening. Everybody's fighting for the top and not really sharing. And and somebody there mentioned to me that they were taught to just live each day like it's their last, right? So people were really enjoying each day. Like sometimes, what caused my stress levels in corporate was we're always planning ahead. Yes, goal setting is good. But we get so stressed about what we're going to be doing tomorrow and the 5 years from now and 10 years from now. And we get so overwhelmed in it that we forget to live present day and
And can we
enjoy and be grateful for present day.
Okay, so I'm going to keep interrupting you because I think this is gold, right? Because and for everyone listening, like if we think now about, so a lot of you are leaders, you've got big teams, big pressures. We're in this new state of the world, and I love that we're talking, Gail, about goals, but also being present. And again, I so strongly resonate with this because my whole career, I guess, I've been, well, I'm the get shit done girl. Like I can execute and that is great.
Yeah.
But recently also, so a lot of you would know we're just actually launching our academy as well. And we've been talking a lot about, these new skills like adaptive thinking and the need to converge, so come together, execute, get stuff done, but also you've got to have that divergent time where it's not tied to, but this is what the goal says, and get into that linear process mode, because that's where you miss the magic and the creativity.
Yes.
So I love that you're talking about that as well, because I think, and again, like I want to talk about the work that you're doing now, because I'm sure that you go deep into this with all of your clients and the corporates you work with and everything you teach. It's one thing to say, I reckon anyway, to go, yep, you've got to have goals, but you've also got to not obsess too much about the goals.
Yes.
And I remember finding that such what? How do I do that? Like you've got to kind of learn the balance of, execution, strategy, vision, goals, accountability, and time to diverge, create, have that, let your imagine. Like for me, I remember that was hard coming out of what I used to be, to kind of get that balance of those two things. So, I mean, what are your, how do you, I mean, is this what you teach other leaders now? Like, what are you doing now around this space?
Yeah, so I follow, like I started to allude to this serve methodology that I do teach. So we did start off with that strategic planning to maximize success, right? And it does include goal setting, but it also does include that, understanding your strength, be self-reflecting on you. And then, there's a piece in there where we're talking about empowering mindset to fulfill your dreams, right? So further on in the R process of that, I help people to really put together the plan. Because a lot of times, we can put together those goals and say this is what we want to do, but we need that empowered mindset in order to like take that next step to actually psych yourself up to do them. And then also have a tangible process where you're following through, right? A methodology and a plan where you are actually implementing those goals.
Yeah.
The V in serve is really about values leadership to make a difference. Like really understanding the value that you bring, understanding your own personal values, and really owning that, right? So for me, in my journey, when I created this 5-step process, is I value serving, value volunteering in different communities. So by suppressing that stopped me from shining in different spaces of life, which I would never have done if I did not allow myself to be present and open to it and give myself the opportunity to even do it, right? So again, aligning with your mentioning just now of being rigid and being very linear. Sometimes as women, to prove ourselves in corporate, we migrate more towards like the male kind of way, and not really adhering to our femininity, right? And our intuition. And I feel like sometimes that suppresses what we really can do. And the last part of Serve E is really helping people to expand their reach for maximum impact, meaning taking those risks, being innovative, creating those opportunities where you can really do something that's outside your comfort zone. And to me, that's like for me, the winning strategy in how we can move ourselves from where we are now to really where we want to be. And it still incorporates, the logical side with the goals, the strategy, and all that. It incorporates some sort of like intuition, and then it still pushes people to get out their comfort zone and move from one level to another, right? So really unlocking their potential.
I love it because I feel like, and I've been reflecting a lot as well, and you and I have been chatting behind the scenes, if you think about, like, in terms of being present, so you look at where we are and everything that's going on in the world, like we've both alluded to, the reality I find anyway, because, you and I both probably, I speak to a lot of leaders, CEOs, all sorts of people, and people are exhausted, right? They're emotionally exhausted. It's a lot. We've come off last year. We're still processing, stepping back into leading teams, and suddenly your team is dispersed. They might never be in an office again together. Everyone's exhausted. You've lost all this time. So you got to do more. Like, I guess the point is the pressure to do more, and, with less and less people, and people are exhausted. Like, it's tough, right? So, if, you and I are talking about, being present, and I was reflecting on, I was writing an email yesterday, and I was reflecting on, how as leaders, and you probably give the same advice, and I do as well, as a leader, you've got to put yourself first, right? You've got to fill. You've got to do what you're talking about. You've got to do it for you, because to lead other humans, you can't lead from when you're depleted and exhausted and kind of putting the face on, because that's what people expect.
Yes.
But my reflection around that, I was writing and going, yep, logical brain goes, hell yeah, makes complete sense. Emotional brain's going, but Gail, I can't get out of the vortex. Like, I want to do that, and I want to prioritize fitness and do this. But right now I'm looking down the barrel of 10 back-to-back Zoom meetings, and my team's hurting, and so my question for you is, because I love that you've got that process, because I feel like we need a simple pathway when we're in that, and your logical brain's going, God, I want that, but I don't know how. I'm already up here. Like, how do we start to actually take those first steps to start to make the space when we already feel completely full up and exhausted, to then get kind of out of this and start to realign and get our energy and everything you're talking about? Like, is that something that you're coming across where people are really struggling to even take that first step?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, one of the ways that we connect is because I was doing this market research for a program that I'm creating for self-love, self-worth, and gratitude. And through that, Tony participated in that market research. And what I learned from that, and then Tony obviously introduced me to you. So I'm glad for this opportunity here. One of the things that I've been learning, some of the things I've been learning, and I interviewed both male and female, a lot of people that are professionals, high accolades, and there's so many things in common for what people have been going through, especially now with the pandemic. And people want a career where they, have more confidence and feel smart. They don't want to be stuck. But people were mentioning to me too, they have a lot of concerns with health. They don't have time for taking care of their health. And I went through that too, because we kind of prioritize the job. We kind of prioritize, and we have to dig deeper and why that's happening, right? And a lot of the times it's because we're trying to prove to somebody else how good we are, or trying to prove something or self-worth that way. but at the same time, then we're not true to ourselves or loving self, right? So we give a lot of these people were just giving to others too, and neglect self in the process. So to answer your question, a lot of times you just have to take time, and it's being intentional, like getting up early in the morning and setting, what's the intention for yourself that day and how you want to be and how you're going to take care of yourself. So that could be, scheduling time for the gym, scheduling time for meditation, scheduling time for prayer, scheduling time for relaxation, scheduling time for reading. It could be something, but it needs to be like scheduled either in your calendar, on paper, in your somewhere that there is value in time for yourself and your family, So I would break things down into what do you value? So if it's family, if it's quality time, if it is vacations, if it is a healthy body, valuing your finances, other things outside of the job, then we need to put those into buckets and allocate time, a block schedule time on the calendar so that we actually get these done.
Yeah. Do you know, I love it because this has been the revelation for me as I get older and wiser. Mm-hmm. It's all here, right? Yeah. Everything here. And I love that you're talking about self-worth and self-identity and self-love because, God, no one's as cruel to us as we are. Like, no one. One of my girlfriends always says, what would you say to your best friend, when you're beating yourself up about whatever it is? And it's such good perspective for me because you're right. I would never say some of the things I've said to myself to a girlfriend. Like, I would never be that mean, right?
Right.
So I love that we're talking about this because, it's been interesting for me as well, which I might have shared with you. But, we've done, I don't know, it's something like probably 120 episodes or something now. Mm-hmm. And I reckon, and we've got to get the stat right, but I reckon probably 90+% of the guests I've had on here, no matter title, size of business, accomplishments, how many books they've written, we've had Order of Australia medal winners, everything, right? I reckon most of them have said something about either imposter syndrome,
yes,
self-doubt. And for me, that's really stuck that theme with me because I love that we talk about that because for me, it just says, you know what? We're all human. We're all tough on ourselves, no matter how outwardly successful we are. And there's a process that we need to go through to actually be kinder to ourselves and make time and prioritize. And I think talking like conversations like this are super important, right? Because, and you said before as well, something else we don't have time to go into, so we'll have to do another episode about, how we show up, and it's that more masculine leadership energy because that is, the structure that we're working in, and it's slowly changing, nowhere near fast enough. But you show up, and certainly that was true for me, you show up as, how you think people expect you to show up as that leader, as that role, as that title. Like that's kind of the thing. And we don't have time for this kind of fluffy stuff on this side. But this is the power of showing up as ourselves, right? Is that you're bringing all of that. And you said, when you're, your last day, how do you get out there and elevate yourself and get out? And this is where opportunities come, which is exactly to the point that you started with about, it's not a linear path. It's intuition, it's logic, it's both, it's grabbing opportunities, it's taking a risk, true to yourself, aligning with you, all these things, but it's a process, right?
It's a process, yes.
So I told you this would go fast and we'd cover a lot
of it. You have to do another one, so we can continue. Well,
because now you're on this call, I'm like, okay, great. So I'm going to check in and go, so what's the big change been since we chatted in April? It took me a second to figure what month we're in for a second. Okay, so we do have to start to wind up. But the thing I wanted to ask you as well, because you mentioned it before, and again, you and I were chatting behind the scenes about the power of human connection, right?
Yes.
And it's so fascinating, I know, to both of us that we've talked about this. Like you and I are on opposite sides of the globe. We've never met in person. One day, hopefully, right? But both of us have shared with, that I reckon the last 18 months, I have met the most incredible people who I've never, ever met in person. It's been through this, but still forge these incredible connections, opportunities, relationships that they appear, right? And you and I were reflecting on how do we actually get to this moment. And of course, you're a panelist on a fantastic event we did for International Women's Day with Vanguard as well.
Yes, thank you for that.
But it was so good. And I think this is kind of the point I think we both want to leave this community with, because I know I said to you, how, if our community want to know more about what you're doing, the work you do, how you work with people, all that sort of stuff. And you and I remember we were reflecting on, the power of connection, and that, it took, Tony found you on LinkedIn or wherever it was. We started talking. So I think this is such a great note to finish on, because a lot of our community, you all always say to me, networking, and, it feels a bit like I know I should do more, but I've kind of neglected it and it feels a bit weird. And, because we've got all in that a fear of rejection and what if they don't, like, there's all this stuff, right?
Yes.
But this is the power of connection. So take us out on that note, Gail. How can we connect with you? What are your thoughts on that? How do we learn more about what you're doing? Any and all of the above.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I truly believe in the power of connection. I also realize, everything that we need in life is right there for us, right? So when somebody presents an opportunity, like, take it, because you just never know where and when that connection will benefit you. I've learned that so many times over and over in life. Just do it, right? So one way that people can connect, I have on my background here. So connect with me at Lightshift 360. Follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Go to gailemcarter.com. If they go there, then they'll see all of my social media. A couple of things that I've been working on this year. I really believe in, I love culture, inclusion, and travel, right? So I've been working on, in December, I did a virtual holiday retreat in Barbados, but I did it virtually to share two countries' cultures together. And I had the cultural ambassador for Barbados come on that virtual event. I'm planning to do more of those this year if people are interested in embracing different countries virtually.
I love the idea. So we need to do something. We'll do a virtual retreat together.
Yes, that would be amazing. I also have the self-love, self-worth course coming up, so people can connect there if they're interested in that. I'm going to be doing a vision box party as well, because it's part of putting together goals and strategy. It's kind of like a fun environment to also like dream and share with each other what we want to do in life, and I think that's a fun thing to do. Yeah. And yeah, so I have a lot of things coming up. I love for people to connect. LinkedIn is a great way though. So just look for me at Gail M. Carter and connect with me there, and go to gailemcarter.com for all of my social media.
I love your energy. And it's, again, I'm laughing because you and I remember in our lead up to this, and you're like, okay, there's certain questions like, well, you seem like, you can just go with the flow. We've got such a good connection that who knows where we'll go. So I hope all of you have enjoyed this, because it's, for me, these are the conversations that stay with me. They're the ones that have some fun and some levity. And we're talking about these big kind of deep topics about identity and self-worth, but I always try and anchor it back to, the real life, like how people can take some practical stuff as well. So Gail, thank you so much.
Oh, and thank you.
Absolutely. And I love that you said then as well, it's a serious, but bring fun and make time for imagining. Like you can't bring this vision of what you want to do if you don't have time for fun and silliness and imagining time. That's the divergent bit, right?
Yes.
And then you execute. So I can't wait to see what you're doing next. So obviously we'll stay in touch. Everyone connect with Gail. As you can see, an amazing woman. We haven't even talked about so much of the stuff that you've achieved. So we'll definitely do another episode, but thank you so much. Have a brilliant, I was going to say day, but have a brilliant evening for you. And certainly hope to see you soon. Thanks again.
Well, I want to thank you, Alex. And I also want to thank your audience for listening. And I would love the opportunity to come back and share more again. So thank you. And we'll talk soon.
Great. Thanks, everyone. And as always, we'll see you at the same time and the same back channel very soon. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.